So we're at the start of a week-long campaign that the Pollinator Partnership is putting on called Mite-a-thon. It's their second annual campaign just to bring awareness to beekeepers and just trying to start the conversation and help educate and inform beekeepers on the varroa mites within our hives and how to control them. It was an interesting little story. Yesterday I bumped into a beekeeper and I asked him what his mite counts were, and he said, "Oh, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure hives look good. They're going into winter. He figures he's all right." So I said, "Well, you know, just for the purposes of this campaign, why don't you go take a wash and then upload the data just to contribute, to show your support to the efforts made on behalf of the Pollinator Partnership." So he did. So he went and took a sample. He used the method that I suggested here and what he typically used. Washed some mites, took one sample, and he found like 4 or 5 mites in that sample, and it kind of took him back a little bit. So then he went and then he surveyed his entire apiary. He went through like about 10% of his hives just to see what was going on. He realized his mite counts, which he figured were low. You know, he just assumed, I guess he was assuming they're about 1% or lower. He was finding 4.5, 5% mite loads within his colonies. And it really set him back. He wasn't prepared for it, and he didn't know what to do. And that is the whole point of this campaign, is just get beekeepers out there in their yards and just get that baseline level of mites within your colonies. Regardless if you figure you're going to treat or not, or if you know you have mites or don't have mites, get out there, get that baseline. It's very important to get that baseline for mite counts before you even start treating. And it just helps you prepare thought and develop better beekeeping practice. It just helps you put together a better strategy and move forward. So very often in this beekeeping practice, we are so reactionary. We tackle a problem after it's hit us. We got to try to be a little more proactive and try to move forward and tackle these issues before they become an issue. So that same beekeeper, he's faced with 4.5, 5% mite counts, and now he's sitting there thinking to himself, what am I going to do? It's already into September here. This is a very important time building winter bees. He's got this mite count. What's he going to do? So it's helped him put together a bit of a strategy now. So we had a bit of a discussion. We don't have a lot of options in our bucket, but we have a few options here. There's oxalic acid, there's formic acid. They work according to certain conditions around them. Okay, so it's best you talk to your provincial apiarist or your state apiarist on all those conditions within your area to figure out the conditions needed for those treatments to work properly. And then there's chemical treatment. This particular beekeeper, because his mite counts were so high, he figured, I got to get these mites under control. I got to use for sure method here, and he moved to Apivar. So what Apivar is, these are a couple old strips here. They're amitraz, 3.3% amitraz impregnated into strips. And the recommended dose is 1 strip for every 5 frames of bees. So if you look into my colonies here, I have a 10 frame box of bees, so I'd be using 2 strips. If you're managing double hives and you find you got 2 boxes of bees going, you got to use 4 strips. You got to make sure that you catch the mites in all pockets within those hives. Just by the very nature of the way the bees move within their hives, they kind of circulate like this within and around the combs. So you got to make sure that you have those strips in place to be able to target those mites so they can't get away from you. So anyways, these treatments it's like a 42-day or 50-day treatment. Check on your label, and it'll catch your mites as the brood nest progresses through. So you got to get it through 2 or a little bit more brood cycles on this thing. Very effective in the fall as our brood nest is shrinking. There's more mites exposed on the bees, so these strips kill the mites very well. So my inbox is full. Every morning, beekeepers asking about treatment regimes, and they're specifically asking about what I do to control my mites. And you got to understand, you got to appreciate that what I do doesn't necessarily reflect what everybody can do here, just because a lot of beekeeping is regional. There's a lot of conditions outside around us that are influencing what's going on inside that hive. So you got to be aware that what I am doing doesn't necessarily translate into what you guys are doing. You got to appreciate that up here in Manitoba we are very seasonal. We have very well defined seasons as we go through the year, and our bees respond to those seasons like almost exactly. They tune into our seasons and they perform exactly to the season they're in. We're in fall now, we're going into fall, and the bees know that. They're shutting down, they're preparing their nest for winter, and they're ready just to drift straight into winter here. So my nest is starting to go broodless. My whole treatment strategy, my treatment regime, is I use Apivar, use the hard treatment in the spring. I find it a lot easier to target those mites in the spring as they're developing throughout that spring nest, mostly because of workload for me, and I just feel that the bees are more active and the weather is a little more predictable as we move through May into June. I want those bees clean as they enter the honey flow, as those big nests build those massive brood nests. I don't want mites breeding down in those bees. I find that gets me into fall. I'll test my hives to see what level my mite counts are. If my mite count is below 1%, especially this time of year, I'll hold off on any treatment. And what I do is I wait until late of October before I move my bees inside for winter, and I give them a dose or two of oxalic acid vapor just to target those mites on those bees, and just to hit those mites a different way. And I've been finding efficacy with oxalic acid. I've also been noticing there's not a lot of common knowledge around oxalic acid. It's just kind of like a shot in the dark a lot, so I want to be spending some attention towards that. But I found has really helped me keep my bees mite free, and just gives me another option to try to control this damn pest. The question is, well, if I had a high mite count beginning of September, end of August, beginning of September, what am I going to do? Well, if I have a 5% mite count beginning of September at about this time of year, I got to take that very seriously, and I'm going to use these strips and I'm going to knock those bastards down, and then follow through with an oxalic acid treatment later in fall. So that's what I do. It's been working very well for me. So that's just a few thoughts. I encourage all of you to grab a sample from your hives, get that baseline reading, upload it to www.mitecheck.com, support the whole project, and then with that information you'll have a baseline to be able to make your treatment decisions. Make sure you follow up with another one just to make sure that that treatment actually worked. It just helps make better decisions on moving forwards.